today we're going to take this black. It's a really cool little transparent black that Paul DeMarais came up with. And I'm going to take and put down just a value sort of study type thing on my painting that's going to just be a base. Take me from my reference picture and then sets the land. I'm not going to do the sky, I just want to do the land. And so I'm going to just do a quick thing. What's really cool about his oil sticks here, this is oil paint. It's called an oil stick. And you can kind of make it into a sharper edge. You can draw with it a little bit. So I'm going to take and go ahead and try to draw in the dark areas. And I've taken my reference picture and I've blown it up full size, and I've kind of folded it up so that I can take a look at it while I go. And just going to do the dark areas, and then after that I'm going to take a little bit of just plain turpenoid, I think you call it, just the odorless turpentine type stuff, and then just kind of blend it around a little bit. I've done this same thing with tube oil paint, but I'm just trying this out. He has this really cool color that he just came up with. So it's a transparent black. Trying it out. See if I can do this step with this paint. And once it dries, it'll dry in about a day, I suppose, maybe 2. It dried in about 2 days when I tested it, and if you add a little turpenoid to it, it probably will dry a little bit faster. And then I can start putting colors on. And I like doing this step because I think that it just sort of sets the painting up and makes it, gets you involved in it a little bit, and you know, I don't know, paint on the canvas kind of thing. Just get it started. It's all going to get covered up anyway, but when we make it nice and thin, it won't make a lot of thickness to the paint, which sometimes, you know, can be difficult if you're adding colors later. It just kind of sets my land. And I don't put it in the sky, and the reason I don't put it in the sky is because those sky colors need to be clean, really clean. And so sometimes when you're putting the paints down, it doesn't cover every single area, and so you can see actually little tiny, even pinprick type size holes in that paint that lets you see the colors behind it. And so if it's got a dark color behind there, then you're going to end up, I don't know, making it less sky-like, I guess I would say. So I'm just hitting these darker spots. Now I got some trees here, and I'm going to go ahead and stick them in. This step is fun because it can go at a relatively quick pace, and then you've got something going. This color is a good color because all the colors that are going to go on top of it will go with this color. It's neutral in that sense. And I think when you get the turpenoid on there, you're going to see that it'll lighten up in a lot of areas. So you got a real strong tree line here. Now, as you can see, I have like a horizon that has to do with this tree line. This part of the horizon is a little bit farther back than this one here, but it's basically the same, and it needs to be kind of straight. That's because you're going to be hanging it on the wall, and everybody's going to know if it's not. So go with the flow on that. Then I'm going to just lightly put in some of this stuff here, and it doesn't match up completely with the color. It doesn't have to, because we're going to go ahead and lighten it all up. So just kind of give you a feel for it. It's kind of a long piece. So I had actually added an extra inch to the bottom that doesn't show up on this painting. So this first brush I can add in, you know, sort of an abstract foreground just a little bit, because after all I don't have one to follow. So just stick with the actual patterns that are there, and then hopefully it turns out okay. Now I'm going to just take want to take a sable brush because it's really nice and soft, and I'm just dipping it a little bit into the turpenoid, and I'm going to just dab it off a little bit just to make sure it's okay. Now you see it's already turning into this nice thin layer, and so I'm going to try to follow my design. If I can work and talk at the same time, we will find out. Give me a little bit of a mountain edge at the top. Get that junk off of there. No, I went too far. Methinks I went too far. Okay, so now I'm going to take and just keep going. Try to follow my orange lines at the top of this mountain. And the brush that I have is actually called a Bright. It's sable, which means it's soft. And I get these brushes in a pack. So it's a very inexpensive pack to get, and so it gets different sizes, but it's sort of got a square face to it, and that means you can turn it to the side and kind of draw with it a little bit. So I'm gotta remember to follow my pattern, and this really helps you too, just to set the tone for the next step. I tend to try to cover everything actually. Even though this is going to be really light, then I can lighten that up even more with just a little more fluidity. But I want it to be kind of just a consistent. I don't know. Sometimes when you don't put paint on a certain area, then you try to come in the next day with a different paint on the area. The paints accept differently on the first layer than they do on subsequent layers. So I kind of like to get it across everything where I'm painting anyway. So, and this guy is really light, but he still needs to be covered. So I get a little dark spot in here. So. Okay. Gives you, well, what's really fun about doing this too is then I can hang this. As you can see, I've attached this canvas to a piece of foam board, and at the very top of the foam board, which you cannot see right now, but trust me, there's a couple of holes, and in those holes I put S-hooks, and then I hang the S-hooks off of my, well, they're actually just the hardware that you would use to hang up a curtain. And instead of putting a curtain up, I just stick it to the wall the same way as you would if you had a curtain up there. But I just use that as a kind of a post to just hang the paintings up, and then they're out of the way. A lot of people will have a space and they will just kind of lean the paintings in, and that kind of thing. But I don't have that kind of space, so I had to come up with something where I could see the work. And in the mornings I like to ride my stationary bike to work. I make myself laugh. Anyway, yeah, so I'm in my girl cave and I ride the stationary bike, and then I look at what I've done so far, and it kind of gives me some ideas about where I'm going to take the piece next, and how to approach it. Okay, so This part here needs a little more sauce, so you can see it running. We don't care. It's all going to get covered up anyway. But what's really great is later on when you're looking at it, it's almost, this layer should hopefully almost look like a three-dimensional kind of a layer. Now see, it's really easy for me to get lost about now. So I'm going to just put this down and then come back in, make sure I've got enough juice so I can come back in and just kind of add some. See, it's kind of cool. Okay. So we're almost done. Maybe a bigger brush would have made this go a little faster at the bottom, but on the other hand, you know, in these tighter areas it'd go too fast. So you get too much of a stroke, you lose all of your picture. Okay, so I got some in here. Alright, so now what I can do is I'm taking this guy, I'm just rolling him around here. Well, let me try it here. Okay, so that I can do it. Great. Alright, so I'm taking my darker spots and I'm putting them back in again because you got too light in some areas. So I'm going to come back in, try to get it as close as I can. You know, it doesn't have to be completely perfect, but gosh, you know, the less you make things out of whack, the less you have to correct later. So that's kind of why I print off all these pictures in full, you know, in their full size. Now what's really crazy is these trees here are a lot, the tree line is a lot smaller than what I'm drawing right now, but my stick is kind of thick, so. But in some ways that's maybe not even the worst thing, because one of the hardest things about the sky pieces is that the land, if you're going to highlight sky, then your land tends to be smaller, and otherwise you've got too many subjects, if you know what I'm saying. So I don't really I like to have the sky be the main subject. Okay, so I'm bringing this all back in. I'm going to hit these guys a little spots here and there, and then oh, I don't know, I got a little grass there. I'm going to have to put some of that in, definitely, and kind of go this right, and then it's like, okay. Now I'm going to just once over this guy, and that's really kind of it. I'll keep going until the camera turns off. But I appreciate you watching, and I hope that this has some meaning. And if you have questions, you know, please send me a note, let me know. I'm more than happy to answer whatever questions I think I can do justice to. And we're going to go from here. Once this dries, then we're going to start putting color down. So that's really fun. The first blush at it is the absolute most fun with the color, because you put color down, it'll seem as willy-nilly as you can imagine until you start blending it together, at least the approach that I'm using. So I hope that you're excited about painting skies. Okay, talk to you later. Oh, I had one final thought for you on this stage, and that was that you can go ahead and use like a tissue, and you can take some of this off. So, sorry, it's a little herky-jerky my video, but at least you get kind of a general idea. Then when you see it next time, it's going to look a little different, because now I see my batteries. Anyway, so see how that goes. You can pull off some of this and get quite a realistic look. It's kind of crazy. All right, bye.